the unexpected encounter. The void of space trembled as 300 Karathi warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. Each vessel was a monument to the Empire's military might, their dark hulls bristling with weapon arrays that could reduce planets to ash. At the center of this armada floated the Dominion's Edge, a battleship so massive it cast shadows across neighboring cruisers. Fleet Admiral Zoreth stood in the command center, his forearms moving with practiced efficiency as he studied the holographic displays. The Karathi were an ancient race, their gray-scaled bodies built for war and their minds shaped by 17 centuries of conquest. Zoreth's red eyes glowed with satisfaction as he reviewed the formation data. This fleet represented the largest military gathering in recent memory, assembled for one purpose: to deal with the human problem. "Status report," Zoreth commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never known defeat. Warcast Vecthan, his primary tactical advisor, approached with the measured stride of a career soldier. "Admiral, long-range sensors have detected the human vessel exactly where our intelligence predicted. It appears to be alone, as expected." Zoreth's mandibles clicked with amusement. The humans had been expanding into contested space for months, establishing research stations and mining operations with remarkable speed. When diplomatic protests failed to halt their advance, the Karathi High Command had decided on a more direct approach. 300 ships to eliminate one human vessel might seem excessive, but the Empire had learned the value of overwhelming force in their first encounters with these strange bipedal creatures. "Show me," Zoreth ordered. The main display shifted to reveal a distant star system where a single ship drifted in the outer reaches. The vessel appeared unremarkable by Karathi standards, roughly cylindrical with various sensor arrays and equipment pods attached to its hull. It looked more like a research platform than a warship, which only confirmed Karathi intelligence reports about human peaceful intentions in this region. "Scan results indicate minimal defensive capabilities," Vecthan reported. "Standard electromagnetic, shielding, basic structural armor, and what appears to be a small point defense system. No evidence of heavy weapons or military-grade protection." Zoreth nodded approvingly. The humans had proven surprisingly resilient in previous encounters, but they were still a young species with limited understanding of galactic warfare. This single ship would serve as an example to discourage further human expansion into Karathi territory. Meanwhile, aboard the UEV Pioneer, Captain Elena Rodriguez was reviewing archaeological survey data when the proximity alarms began sounding throughout the ship. She had been a military engineer before accepting command of this research vessel, but those days seemed far behind her as she led a crew of scientists and academics on humanity's most ambitious deep space expedition. "Captain, to the bridge," came the urgent voice of her first officer, Lieutenant Commander James Park. Elena made her way through corridors lined with scientific equipment and specimen containers, past laboratories where her crew studied artifacts from long-dead civilizations. The Pioneer was humanity's first dedicated archaeological research vessel, designed to unlock the secrets of ancient alien cultures scattered throughout the galaxy. The bridge was smaller than a military vessel's command center, with workstations, optimized for scientific research rather than combat operations. Elena took her position in the captain's chair as her senior staff provided situation reports. "Multiple contacts approaching from the outer system," reported Navigation Officer Lisa Warner. "Initial count shows approximately 300 vessels in organized formation." Dr. Marcus Chen, the mission's chief archaeologist, looked up from his station with concern. "Captain, based on the ship configurations in our database, those appear to be Karathi military vessels." Elena felt her stomach tighten. The Karathi Empire was known throughout human space as a powerful and aggressive civilization that had conquered dozens of younger species. Their presence here, in such overwhelming numbers, could only mean trouble. "Communications, open a channel," Elena ordered. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of Fleet Admiral Zoreth. His alien features were stern and uncompromising, with the bearing of someone accustomed to absolute obedience. "Human, vessel," Zoreth began, his translated words carrying obvious authority. You have entered Karathi territorial space without authorization. By order of the High Command, you will immediately surrender your ship and submit to Imperial custody. Elena exchanged glances with her senior staff before responding. Admiral, this is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the United Earth Research Vessel, Pioneer. We're conducting archaeological surveys in what we understand to be neutral space. Our mission is entirely peaceful and scientific in nature. Zorith's red eyes narrowed as he processed the human's response. In his experience, species facing the might of the Imperial fleet typically responded with either immediate surrender or desperate pleas for mercy. This human captain's calm, reasoned tone was unexpected. Your intentions are irrelevant, Zorith replied coldly. This system falls under Karathi protection. Your presence here represents an act of aggression against the Empire. Dr. Chen stepped forward, his scientific curiosity overriding diplomatic caution. Admiral, perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. We're here studying the ruins on the fourth planet. Our research could benefit all species by expanding our knowledge of the ancient precursor civilization. The mention of the precursors caused a stir on the Karathi command bridge. Vecthon moved closer to Zorith, speaking in rapid, untranslated Karathi. The Admiral's expression grew more serious as he listened to his advisor's concerns. Elena noticed the change in the alien's demeanor. Dr. Chen, what exactly have you discovered on that planet? Before the archaeologist could respond, Zorith cut back into the conversation. Your archaeological activities end now. You will transfer all research data to our vessels and prepare for boarding. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. Elena looked around her bridge at the faces of her crew. These were some of Earth's brightest scientists and engineers, people who had dedicated their lives to expanding human knowledge and understanding. The thought of surrendering their discoveries to an aggressive alien empire was unthinkable. Admiral, Elena said carefully, we need time to secure our scientific equipment and prepare our research data for transfer. Some of our discoveries are quite delicate and require special handling. Zorith's mandibles clicked with impatience, but he recognized the practical necessity of preserving valuable research materials. You have 1 standard hour to prepare. Any attempt to destroy data or flee will result in the immediate destruction of your vessel. The communication link closed, leaving the Pioneer's bridge in tense silence. Elena turned to her crew, seeing determination mixed with fear in their expressions. Options? She asked quietly. Chief Engineer Sarah Thompson spoke first. Captain, our drives are no match for those warships. If we try to run, they'll catch us before we can jump to hyperspace. What about our defensive systems? Elena asked. Minimal at best, Sarah replied. We've got standard deflector shields and some point defense lasers, but nothing that could stand up to military-grade weapons. Dr. Chen cleared his throat nervously. Captain, there might be another option. The precursor ruins we've been studying contain some remarkable technological artifacts. We've managed to activate several systems, though we don't fully understand their functions. Elena raised an eyebrow. What kind of systems? Energy manipulation devices, structural modification equipment, and what appears to be some kind of defensive network, Chen explained. We've been cataloging them for research purposes, but with the right modifications, we might be able to integrate some of their capabilities with our ship's systems. Sarah Thompson's eyes lit up with engineering enthusiasm. If we could tie ancient precursor tech into our systems, we might stand a chance. At the very least, we could give them a surprise they're not expecting. Elena weighed their options. Surrender meant losing years of research and potentially valuable technological discoveries that could benefit all of humanity. Fighting seemed impossible against such overwhelming odds. But the possibility of using precursor technology offered a third alternative. How long would you need to implement these modifications? Elena asked. With the entire engineering team working together, maybe 45 minutes, Sarah estimated. It would be risky and completely untested, but it's better than surrendering. Without a fight. Elena made her decision. Do it. All departments coordinate with engineering. We're going to show these Karathi that humans don't surrender easily. As the crew scrambled to implement their desperate plan, Fleet Admiral Zorith watched the human vessel from his command bridge. The ship appeared to be making preparations for surrender, with various sections showing increased activity and power fluctuations. This aligned with typical behavior patterns for conquered species. Boarding parties are prepared, Vecthan reported. Once we secure their research data, this system will be fully under Imperial control. Zorith nodded approvingly. The human encounter would be recorded as another successful example of Karathi military efficiency. These bipedal creatures might possess unusual determination, but they were ultimately no different from the dozens of other species the Empire had absorbed over the centuries. Neither the Karathi admiral nor his tactical advisor could have predicted what the humans were actually preparing. As the clock counted down toward the surrender deadline, the Pioneer was undergoing the most radical transformation in the history of human space exploration. Ancient alien technology, dormant for millennia, was awakening under the guidance of human ingenuity and desperation. The Karathi had expected to face a single research vessel. Instead, they were about to encounter something that would challenge everything they understood about warfare, technology, and the species they had so confidently dismissed as inferior. The hour was almost up, and the real confrontation was about to begin. When one ship becomes a fleet, the transformation of the UEV Pioneer began in the deepest sections of the ship, where Dr. Marcus Chen's archaeological team had spent months carefully studying precursor artifacts. As Chief Engineer Sarah Thompson connected power conduits to ancient crystalline matrices, the artifacts began to resonate with harmonious energy patterns that seemed almost alive. Incredible, Dr. Chen whispered as he monitored the integration process. The precursor systems are adapting to our technology faster than our computers can process the changes. Throughout the ship, crew members worked with focused determination that would have impressed even military veterans. In the geology lab, Professor David Kim was reconfiguring mineral analysis equipment to work with precursor energy patterns. The botany team, led by Dr. Maria Santos, discovered that their atmospheric processors could channel the ancient power systems in ways that defied conventional physics. Captain Elena Rodriguez moved between departments, coordinating the impossible fusion of human engineering and alien archaeology. With only minutes remaining before the Karathi deadline, she could see the strain on her crew's faces, but also the excitement of scientists on the verge of a breakthrough. Captain, Sarah Thompson called from the main engineering console, the precursor systems are online. I've never seen energy readings like this. It's as if the ancient technology was designed to work with whatever civilization discovered it. Elena nodded, understanding the implications. The precursors had been the most advanced species in known galactic history, vanishing mysteriously millions of years ago but leaving behind artifacts that continued to puzzle archaeologists. If their technology was truly adaptive, it might explain how they had achieved such incredible advancement. All stations report ready, Elena announced over the ship's communication system. Whatever happens next, remember that we're not just fighting for our lives. We're fighting for the right of all species to explore and learn without fear. On the Karathi flagship, Fleet Admiral Zorith grew impatient as the human surrender deadline approached. The alien vessel continued to show unusual activity patterns, but Vecthan assured him that this was normal behavior for a research ship preparing to transfer scientific data. Time remaining. 3 minutes, Vecthan reported. Boarding shuttles are prepared to launch on your command. Zorith studied the tactical display, noting that the human ship had not moved from its original position. This suggested either complete acceptance of Karathi's superiority or some kind of mechanical failure that prevented escape. Either way, the outcome would be the same. Signal the human vessel, Zorith ordered. Inform them that their time is expiring. The communication channel opened to reveal Captain Rodriguez on the Pioneer's bridge. However, something seemed different about the human captain. Her expression showed a confidence that hadn't been present during their earlier conversation. Admiral. Zorith, Elena said calmly, we've completed our preparations. However, we've reconsidered your surrender demand. Zorith's red eyes flashed with anger. You dare defy the might of the Karathi Empire? Your single ship cannot stand against 300 warships. Elena smiled with the kind of confidence that came from years of solving impossible engineering problems. You're absolutely right, Admiral. One human ship cannot stand against your fleet. Fortunately, we're no longer just one ship. Before Zorith could process the meaning of her words, the Pioneer began to change. The transformation started subtly, with the ship's hull section shifting and realigning in ways that seemed to flow, like liquid metal. Then, more dramatically, the vessel began to separate into multiple distinct units, each one taking on the characteristics of a specialized combat platform. The forward section, containing the bridge and primary laboratories, reconfigured itself into a command vessel, bristling with sensor arrays and communication equipment. The engineering sections transformed into heavily armored support ships, their hulls glowing with the energy of integrated precursor power systems. The scientific modules became specialized warfare platforms, each one designed for a specific, tactical role. Within minutes, the single research vessel had become a flotilla of 12 interconnected ships, all sharing the same power source and command structure, but each capable of independent operation. Impossible, Vecthan breathed, staring at the tactical display as his sensors struggled to understand what they were seeing. Zorith's 4 arms gestured frantically as he tried to process the unprecedented transformation. In 17 centuries of conquest, the Karathi had never encountered technology that could reconfigure itself so completely and rapidly. Analysis, Zorith barked. Admiral, each segment is showing power readings equivalent to a full military vessel, Vecthan reported, his voice tight with disbelief. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Elena's voice came over the communication channel, now transmitted simultaneously from all 12 vessels. Admiral, you wanted to see what humans are capable of when we combine our scientific knowledge with our determination to survive. Consider this a demonstration. The Pioneer's transformed flotilla began to move, not in the rigid formations favored by Karathi military doctrine, but in a fluid, organic pattern that seemed to anticipate and counter every tactical move the Karathi fleet attempted. Dr. Chen's voice echoed through the transformed vessels, as his archaeological expertise guided their deployment of precursor defensive systems. Captain, the ancient technology is responding to our tactical needs. It's as if the precursors designed these systems for exactly this kind of situation. Sarah Thompson coordinated the engineering aspects of their defense, her expertise allowing her to push both human and alien technology beyond their apparent limits. Power distribution is holding steady across all platforms. The precursor energy matrices are actually growing stronger under load. The first exchange of fire came when a Karathi cruiser attempted to target what appeared to be the weakest vessel. In the human formation, the energy beam that should have destroyed the small craft was instead absorbed and redirected through the network of interconnected ships, emerging as a concentrated burst that punched through the cruiser's shields and disabled its primary weapons. They're using our own weapons against us, Vecthan reported, his tactical training struggling to understand the implications. Zorith watched in growing frustration as his fleet's conventional attacks were not only ineffective, but actually seemed to make the human vessels stronger. Every energy beam fired at the transformed Pioneer was absorbed, processed, and returned with interest. All ships, concentrate fire on the largest vessel, Zorith ordered, assuming that destroying the command ship would disable the others. The Karathi fleet focused their combined firepower on Elena's command platform, unleashing enough energy to reduce a small moon to vapor. But instead of being destroyed, the targeted vessel seemed to drink in the energy, its hull glowing brighter as the absorbed power flowed through quantum tunnels to strengthen the entire flotilla. Energy absorption at 400% of normal capacity, Sarah reported with excitement in her voice. The precursor systems are using the Karathi weapons to power our defensive grid. Elena realized that they had discovered something remarkable about precursor technology. It wasn't just advanced, it was designed to learn and adapt from whatever threatened it. The ancient civilization had created defensive systems that became stronger when attacked, explaining how they had survived so long before their mysterious disappearance. Admiral Zorith, Elena broadcast to the Karathi fleet. Your weapons are only making us stronger. Perhaps it's time to reconsider your approach. But Zorith was not ready to acknowledge defeat. He had built his career on the principle of overwhelming force, and the idea that a single human research vessel could withstand the might of the Imperial fleet was unthinkable. Deploy the siege platforms, he ordered. If conventional weapons cannot penetrate their defenses, we will use devices designed to crack planetary surfaces. The Karathi siege platforms were massive weapons that fired concentrated gravitational pulses capable of destabilizing a planet's core. When turned against the Pioneers' flotilla, they created space-time distortions that should have torn the human vessels apart at the molecular level. Instead, the precursor technology adapted once again. The gravitational weapons were absorbed and redirected, creating a defensive field that made the human ships effectively untouchable by conventional physics. "This is impossible," Zorith muttered, his confidence beginning to crack for the first time in his military career. Elena watched the tactical display as her transformed vessel effortlessly countered every attack the Karathi could mount. But she also recognized that this confrontation needed to end before it escalated beyond all control. "Dr. Chen," she asked, "what can you tell me about precursor diplomatic protocols?" The archaeologist consulted his research data, cross-referencing energy patterns and communication frequencies. "Captain, I believe the precursors were primarily a peaceful civilization. Their defensive technology was designed to neutralize threats without causing unnecessary destruction." Elena made a decision that would define humanity's relationship with the Karathi Empire for generations to come. "All stations prepare for demonstration protocol. We're going to show Admiral Zorith what precursor technology can really do." The 12 vessels of the Pioneer flotilla began to move in perfect synchronization, their combined energy creating a field effect that encompassed the entire Karathi fleet. Instead of attacking the alien warships, the precursor technology simply stopped them. Every Karathi vessel found itself unable to move, their weapons offline, their communications limited to receiving only. "Admiral Zorith," Elena broadcast, "your fleet is now completely under our control. We could destroy every ship, disable your life support, or send you back to your empire with a message about human capabilities. Instead, I'm offering you a choice." Zorith, immobilized in his command chair but still able to speak, responded with grudging respect. "What choice do you offer, human?" "We return your fleet's mobility and weapons, and you return to Karathi space with a report about what you've encountered here. In exchange, you guarantee safe passage for human archaeological expeditions and agree to joint research protocols for studying precursor sites." The fleet admiral considered the offer. His military training demanded that he refuse, but his tactical experience recognized that continued conflict would only result in the destruction of his entire fleet. The humans had demonstrated capabilities beyond anything in the Karathi military archives. "And if we refuse?" Zorith asked. Elena's response carried the weight of absolute certainty. "Then your 300 ships become 300 examples of what happens when anyone threatens human scientific endeavors." The silence stretched for long minutes as Zorith wrestled with a decision that would reshape his understanding of galactic power dynamics. Finally, he spoke. "The Karathi Empire accepts your terms. We will establish proper diplomatic channels for future interactions." Elena smiled as she ordered the release of the Karathi fleet. "Excellent. Dr. Chen will provide you with our preliminary research data on precursor civilization. I think you'll find it quite enlightening." As the Pioneer slowly reconfigured itself back into a single research vessel, Fleet Admiral Zorith watched with newfound respect for the species he had so greatly underestimated. The humans had not defeated his fleet through superior firepower or numbers. They had done something far more impressive. They had turned an impossible situation into an opportunity for cooperation and mutual benefit. "Warcast Vecthon," Zorith said quietly as the Karathi fleet prepared to depart. "Prepare a full report for the High Command. Include a recommendation for immediate diplomatic contact with the human government." "Sir," Vecthon asked, "how do we explain what happened here?" Zorith, looked at the single human vessel that had effortlessly neutralized the largest military force in Karathi history. We tell them the truth. We encountered a species that fights not with weapons but with knowledge, and that makes them more dangerous than any fleet we've ever faced. As the two fleets parted ways, Elena Rodriguez stood on her bridge looking out at the stars, knowing that humanity had taken its first major step toward becoming a respected member of the galactic community. They had proven that human ingenuity, combined with scientific curiosity and the courage to adapt ancient wisdom to modern challenges, could overcome any obstacle. The Pioneer resumed its archaeological mission, but now it carried the additional responsibility of being humanity's first ambassadorial vessel to the wider galaxy. The precursor artifacts continued to function, having found in humanity a species worthy of their ancient legacy of peaceful exploration and defensive innovation. Behind them, the Karathi fleet returned home with a new understanding of what it meant to encounter a truly advanced civilization. They had learned that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from the size of your fleet, but from the limitless potential of minds determined to turn knowledge into power.